Manav. And for everyone's benefit, Interglobe Hotels are a joint venture between Interglobe and the French group Accor. And we sort of are mandated to exclusively develop ibises across the country. We have 19 of them with room counts close to 3,400, but we also have a couple of Novotels and a Pullman through some other SPVs as Interglobe. So it's a total of 24 hotels, 4,800 rooms, another 1,100 rooms under development in 6 properties. So that's our spread, and we are counting. But getting back to Manav, I think that's a great question, especially given where we are in the industry today. What we are going through is going to throw up a lot of challenges for the future. And I would say, a new way of doing things and a new way, the way we see the country, the way we see the industry. And possibly one of the leading ones would be around responsibility and all of us running responsible businesses. And when I say responsible businesses, I also mean things around, compliance, things around transparency, things around efficiency, things around becoming lean, and sort of run a very, very active business. And to do that, you have to have an ecosystem driven by policy that sort of resonates with that agility that should sort of come along, and for all of us to sort of go out there and invest into a sector. Now, when we look at our industry as owners, and we see that there is a huge amount of rigor mortis in the policy for many, many, many years, and possibly a lot of it has not been debated by owners on platforms like today. I do believe if I run a math on how policies stack up against what sort of costs we end up putting into developing hotels, if policies were made more efficient, we would probably end up taking out almost in excess of 30% of inefficiencies that sit in the development side of the business. If we just look at the way our parking norms are structured, even if we were to sort of see how, and you couple the parking norms with the setback and the height restrictions that you have when you go around making these buildings, they are very, very archaic. If one was to take a 150 room format hotel, one could have parking norms ranging from city to city. In Mumbai, it could be just about 80 car parks. But you just go into the adjoining municipality in Thane, you could end up being asked to sort of build in excess of 200 car parks. In some of these cities, like Bangalore, car lifts are not sort of allowed, and so on. The use of FSI is very, very inefficient. Cities like Mumbai, you have to end up buying a lot of FSI. The recent, recently when GST came along, the development cost of our hotels went up by almost 10%, and you can't take input credit for all the immovable parts of the building, which is almost 80% of the total cost. Leaner businesses and agile businesses that can deliver, create that arbitrage between cost and revenue. So I think that's one. The other big trend is the demographics. We are sitting in India where, we have the largest millennial population in the world, and they are sort of mainstreaming, right? So we have to come up with products that sort of resonate with this new emerging traveler, younger, trendier, and so on. I think that's coming in. These people are mainstreaming. They are not just our consumers, but also now slowly becoming our employees, leaders, and so on. The other big trend is this whole digital piece. It's been going on for a while. There's been so much of development of peripheral technology, which is also sort of mainstream. And we are in an onset of a digital world. So the way we will need to connect with our consumers, the conversations have, for example, moved from mainline media, sort of, that onto digital platforms and so on. Not just how we engage with our consumers, but also how we manage our business, which means, and our industry, as we all know, is not at the forefront of delivering data, information through technology at the back end. Our supply chains are not automated, for example. We consume so much as a hotel industry. But the way we just sort of go about our procurement, and trust me, there's a lot of money that sits out there that we can sort of, save for the industry. Our supply chains are not automated. Our back of the house is not automated. How we look at our costs, our everything at the back, we have no sort of credible, conversion of information from data to make ourselves more efficient. So whilst the front end of the business, as you say, the food business, as Sanjay said, has clearly moved out, and one has to be very careful how you sort of envisage it for within the buildings, how you repurpose existing hotels. I mean, we are fine, we are young, we are so careful on how we build our hotels in terms of spaces and so on. But we've got all these hotels out there, they'll probably need to get repurposed. I mean, in our hotels, Mano, when we build, even ceiling heights get debated because it's going to reflect on energy costs as we sort of move forward. So it goes down to that kind of detail. And we are right now working on looking at a little bit of room expansion to do something. And, and that's just growing the room by less than 1 square meter. And this debate has been just going on for weeks and months now. But how does that translate to us in everything in operations and so on? So I think these big trends are something that we need to start building capability as an industry, and automation will be a very, very important part. But before I sign off, there's another one I want to just throw on the table, and that's we have to use our assets for ancillary revenues. That piece has been going around, but we've not really got to it. The airline business, their share of ancillary revenues in the last 10 years has grown from 4% to almost 12%. It today does close to $100 billion. AirAsia gets 20 million visitors a month on their website. And you've got the Allegiant Airways, for example. I was reading up on them. They have put up a target of moving their ancillary revenues from $80 million a year to, over the next 5 years, to $130 million a year. And guess what? 65% of that revenue is actually going to come out by selling hotel rooms from our industry. So we need to look at all our buildings, opportunities, go out. Even today, most of the airline ancillary revenues comes from their core business, but they are now moving out into non-core, working with other suppliers, and they have caught on how they can use their platforms to drive other revenues which are other than the non-core revenues. So I think that's something that we all need to work on. I just want to sort of, take, what Dr. Chaudhary as well as Ashish has said. We are actually heading into, as an industry, into a pretty dangerous situation. Because, the interest is going to pile up, and it's not getting capitalized, as Ashish said, it's not in that with that. And there is confusion. And there is no revenue that's coming into the industry. I mean, there's some of us who are structured, we are still doing a little bit. But if you really go out to a lot of the non-represented owners, there is zero revenue. And they will, in the current state of things, they then have to cough up the interest that's now piled up, and this is going to continue for several months as it appears. So the banks need to stay solvent. So it's a bigger problem, and something has to happen very quickly, in the sense of obviously restructuring is one, extended tenure, maybe aligning with repo rates, maybe. And an alternate investment fund, which could be created for this problem. It has been done for real estate in the past. It could come for our industries, about 45,000 crores that is owed to the banks from the industry ballpark. But this will really have to be dealt very, very fast, so the industry can plan for its liquidity before something starts to go wrong. The industries that other industries cannot do, and definitely outsourcing. The food stuff that we were talking about, I mean, there is merit in considering outsourcing of food, because that whole business has become so specialized. So I think from a leadership perspective, technology perspective, from a business perspective, we need very different kind of skills going forward. And industry will need to build that. Can I jump in here, Mana? I think I bring a bit of a unique situation to this group, given that we have a joint venture with a brand, with Accor. And I'll answer this in two perspectives, from a strategic perspective and then from a tactical perspective. And what we have found at Integro is to partner with a brand like Accor and work together in sort of almost, I think Dr. Chaudhary said, coexist together. We have co-created everything over here, and we found that to be just so powerful for each other that we believe that we have almost perfected this whole investment and an operating model to sort of work and sort of feed off each other in terms of product development, in terms of costs, in terms of manpower and everything. So I think possibly the underlying lesson for people is how much can you invest with the brand. They do bring in, as Mr. Sraf said, a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. It's very apparent when you go to a branded hotel and you go to a sort of not understandable kind of a thing, except for some special ones in general. The SOPs that exist, and like Sanjay said, early warnings. It was just so fast that the SOPs got put into place by Accor for us that it was almost a breeze, if I was to say that. So I think there is enormous power with these brands. Yes, sometimes they can slow down, but that's the nature of it, right? They're just so large. But if we engage and if we sort of co-create, we have found that working with, let's say, our brand Accor, the agility has been very profound, because I think over the years we've just engaged so deeply with each other that we understand each other so well that there's that massive element of co-creating and trust and everything. So if one could inculcate that in your relationships, I think that's very, very powerful. Okay. So I think people should look at that. I think from a tactical perspective, brands can be very agile. They do understand it. Yes, they could, struggle a little bit in driving, other brand changes and things like that. But if one was to sort of engage with them deeply, you should be able to get a lot of success out of it. A lot, Manav. we just love watching movies and reading. Strongly recommend Mad Men. It's a period drama series around the advertising business in the US. I think it's 6 or 7 seasons. It's brilliant. And the other one I would recommend is The Last Kingdom. For those who like historical stuff, it's based on the Saxons, Vikings. It's beautifully produced. And I actually pulled out a very old book and read it again. It was tough to go through it after so many years. But it's a book, I do not know if you all have read this or heard of it. It's called The Hero of a Thousand Faces, Joseph Campbell's. It's a brilliant book. There's a lot of philosophy and that kind of stuff. This time gave me that time to sort of, go through it piece by piece, aram se, so it was nice.